It seems from December 31, when the COVID-19 virus was first announced to the world, till now, the whole world seems to be like on a clampdown. You know, they say put on the mask. Okay, I have no problem with all that. We obey the rules. Whatever health rules that the government say, for health's sake, we obey. I have no problem. But our greatest safety should be to trust the living God. Amen. You know? So it seems that it's like winning its war. But now we stand on the 10th month of the year, like the 10th round of a boxing match. So in a boxing match there are 15 rounds, but here we have only 12 rounds. We don't have 15 rounds. So 10 rounds or 10 and a half is over. So we have remaining 2.5 rounds. What we will do within the next 2.5 months will determine how we will be positioned in 2021 onwards. So please take note of this. How we live the remaining 2.5 months is very critical. Do not take this pandemic just like any other disease or something new. They don't know how to handle this COVID-19. They don't know. That is the truth of the matter. They don't know. And the reason is because this is not just a virus. This is a judgment of God. Period. This is a judgment of God. And because it is a judgment, the length of time is determined by God. So you cannot tell when this virus will die, when it will stop, when it will end. I saw a vision early this year, perhaps in February of this year. I saw a horse, a white horse, with a very, very angry look, very fierce. In the natural, I have never seen a horse with such a look. It had such a fearsome, angry, like a very vengeful look, excuse me, on its eyes and on its whole face. And it started galloping from the east, and it galloped all the way to the west, and then it stopped in the west, at the end of the west. So what is at the end of the west? California. How blessed, isn't it? So this horse started all the way, it went to the west, and as I was looking at the galloping horse, at first it went all around Asia, and then it started moving towards the west. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, what you are seeing is this COVID virus. At that time, World Health Organization have not come up with COVID-19 name yet. It was just called coronavirus. So this is that which you are seeing, which is a judgment against all the blood that has been shed, chiefly the innocent blood. Chiefly the innocent blood. So when you say innocent blood, so I asked the Lord, what is innocent blood? Because I don't want to presume myself what is innocent blood. So innocent blood comes under two categories. Category 1, innocent people who are killed, like muggers. They rob a store and then they just shoot and kill the store owner. For what purpose? So that they will not identify who the robber is, and all these other like gang rape. They rape an innocent girl and then they kill the girl. So that is category 1, innocent lives. People are simply killing one another for no rhyme or reason. Innocent life. This is category 1. Category 2, abortion. The innocent babies that are killed, that's murder, you know. Whether you planned the pregnancy or you didn't plan it, whether you wanted or you didn't want it, a life has been formed. So to kill that is murder. You cannot have any other label to it. You can put whatever label you like, you know. But in the justice of God, there's only one label for it: killing. Right? You agree? Yes. Whether it doesn't matter whether it's full term or half term or quarter term or no term, doesn't matter. You know, in the year 1992, I was ministering in Chicago. So one day, my host and a Caucasian American family is the lady of the house. She's a registered nurse. Very fine Christian. She and her husband was an accountant. And one day she came up to me with a prayer request. A lady in her prayer fellowship who was pregnant. I can't remember how many months she was pregnant. But when she went for her monthly checkup, the doctor diagnosed her and they found that the baby has Down syndrome. So the doctor advised her about the child. Because if it's born, it'll be like a dead vegetable, brain damage, and you'll have great difficulty bringing up a Down syndrome or a worse than a Down syndrome child. So this family, being godly Christians, were at a fix, not knowing what to do. They knew in their heart they should not abort the baby. But now they're considering the factors, how difficult it will be to bring up a mentally retarded or disabled child. So they weigh all the cons, and they were favoring towards aborting, but at the same time in their heart they feared God. So they brought up this matter to this lady, and they requested her to ask me if I could pray and seek the mind of God. So when I was told this, I told straight away, say, what is there to pray? The scriptures simply say, thou shalt not kill. You cannot kill the child. Whether it's Down syndrome or healthy baby, it's a gift. Receive it. Right? Of course, those affected people will say, it is easy for you to say. Right? See, you can look at this from different angle. Finally, I was pressed upon to seek the mind of the Lord. So I took it up before the Lord. I fasted for 2 days, and then I asked the Lord, Lord, this is the situation. What shall we do? What is your will? You know what the Lord answered me? Very simply, one simple sentence with few words. He said, a life is a life. Period. Do you understand what it means? A life is a life. Whether it has got Down syndrome or not, a life is a life. Period. So what does that mean? No abort, right? No abort. A life is a life. I have no answers, why such things happen. We have no answer. But I have one assurance. No matter what happens, our God is a good God. Yeah. Amen? Yeah. In that, I am firmly assured. Whether good things happen to us or bad things happen to us, our God is still a good God. He is not only a good God when good things happen to us. He's also a good God when bad things happen to us. That doesn't change His attribute. Amen? Amen. So from 2003, over the years, I've seen this church. Now, I don't mean now in the physical. I'm saying in the spiritual. It goes through transformation. So when God has a call, sometimes, or maybe most of the time, the call needs a lot of purging, preparation, before finally entering into its call. Like good example is the Lord Jesus Christ. He was born, we don't know when He was born, right? So He was born on one particular day, on one particular year, and He did not enter into His ministry until His 30th year. Right, everybody? Right. Is my math correct? Yes. All right. So from the year 0 till the year 30, He was just a simple carpenter's son. Not only a carpenter's son, He Himself became a carpenter. And then, when the time came for Him to begin His ministry, He didn't just suddenly jump in and begin His ministry. Wrong. The 30 years was time of preparation. 30 years time of preparation. Look at the life of Moses. First 40 years he was the prince of Egypt, and he was being groomed and trained to be the next Pharaoh. That was how he was being trained. If not the next Pharaoh, at least the number 2. Because he's not the original son, no? So he would have been the number 2 prime minister. That was how he was groomed and trained. And then he ran away to Midian. So when he was in Midian, there was another 40-year period of training. After the 40 years of training, then he had the encounter at Mount Sinai. So for a 40-year ministry, he was trained for 80 years. 80 years. First 40 years of Egyptian wisdom training. The second 40 years was unlearning. Get the Egypt out of your brain. So Egypt is the world. Get the world out of your head. So now all this must be unlearned. Unlearned. So he was going back minus 40 years. And for 40 years, for let's say for example working hours 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, he was tending the flock. Do you know why he stammered? If you keep on looking at the sheep and hearing sheep for 40 years, what language are you going to learn? Now you know the secret, huh? Why he was stammering. So, when he had an encounter with God, he was a 0. Nothing on him to rely upon anything. 0. And all he had was the rod of God in his hand. Initially, it was his rod. When he threw it down, now if you read chapter 3 and 4 very carefully, you'll find this transformation that takes place or took place. The Lord asked him, what is in your hand? He said, this is my shepherd's rod. He said, throw it down. It became a serpent, right? And then the Lord said, take it up. So when he took it up, it became a rod again. And before he left the presence of God, the Lord told him, take the rod of God and go. Now that is a turning point, you know. First, it was the rod of Moses. From then onwards, throughout the book of Exodus and Numbers, you'll find it mentioned the rod of God. No more the rod of Moses. Change. A change took place. So when a change takes place, we must be quick to adapt. Whether we like it or we don't like it. When we are accustomed to something that has become a norm, and then to do something new, it takes some time, right? Like I still find breathing difficulty when I put on the mask. But what else do we have to do? No choice, right? So every now and then I'll play trick by pulling the mask down under my nose. So at least, but when someone comes, what to do? You know what is the buzzword in the world today? The new normal. Have you heard of that? This is becoming an international buzzword now. The new normal. And they are saying our life will no more be the same. Have you heard that? Yes. Life will no more be the same. Which means even if coronavirus dies, life will no more be the same. We have gone into a new change. It's been prepared, like how a butterfly goes through a metamorphosis until the time comes for the butterfly to come out of the pupa. Even the coming out of the pupa, there is a time that God has ordained. The butterfly should not come out before its time. If it comes out before its time, it will die. I'm sure you all remember who Sadu선다셀바라지 is, right? Do you all? Okay. This is something that happened in his life. So one morning, he came out to do his morning devotion, and he sat by the veranda, and he was drinking his cup of tea and reading his script Bible. And he just glanced and he saw a pupa hanging by a shrub, and his attention was drawn because it began to move and vibrate. And then as he was looking, he saw a crack happening on the top of the pupa. So he was seeing with great interest because he likes to observe nature. And then he saw the pupa being cracked open and a little leg sticking out. And then it was kicking and causing the pupa to break open. So he thought, this poor butterfly is struggling to crack open the pupa. Let me help. So how did he help? He just break open the pupa and took the gentle wet butterfly in his hand and gently let it down on the ground. So he was so happy he had done a midwife's job. And the butterfly, he noticed, was all wet all over, and it walked a few steps trying to dry its wings, and the worst happened. The butterfly dropped dead. So Sadu선다셀바라지 was shocked. How can the butterfly drop dead? As he was looking shocked, and he heard the voice of the Lord speak to him. There is a time to born, a time to die. God has determined a time for all creation in nature when they should be born. There is a time for the butterfly to come out of the pupa. The butterfly died because of you. Because, see, God has ordained. Now listen to this biology. This is a teaching from the Holy Spirit. In the enclosed space of a pupa, the little butterfly inside it that goes through the transformation has all the energy, oxygen, food that it needs. So when the butterfly breaks open the shell, air from outside comes in little by little for the lungs of the butterfly to get used to breathe. So when you break open the shell, there was a sudden influx of oxygen and it exploded the little butterfly's lungs. It was not prepared for the suddenness, the sudden that came. So it died prematurely. In the same manner, God doesn't suddenly give a person everything that will cause them to die. Because you wouldn't know how to handle. When you don't know how to handle, you will die because of pride. When the church is not trained to handle a great harvest of souls, if God sends you 1,000 new members, how will you deal with them? So every one of you first must be trained. Right? You must be trained to become a mini pastor or a discipler. Look at this poster behind me. Go therefore and preach the gospel to all creature. But it says exactly make disciples. It doesn't say be a believer, right? So how have you been all these years? A believer or a disciple? What's the difference? Okay. The difference is a believer is just a church attendee. They warm the pew because the pews get cold, you know. So they just warm the pew, make sure that it is naturally heated. Don't laugh, that's exactly what you are doing. Am I right? Right? That's what we do, you know. So when you laugh, you are laughing at your own self. You're not laughing at anybody. Am I right? But the word of the Lord is make disciples, not become a member. So in order to be a disciple, the word disciple means you are a trainer. You train after your season of growth. You are not supposed to be just an attendee all the time. You are not supposed to go forth, be fruitful and multiply. You are supposed to be fruitful and to multiply. See, when a man and a woman get married, the natural outcome of a marriage union is they'll have a child, right? So if after many years a married woman couldn't have a child, society have a label for her. So a woman who cannot conceive is called a barren woman. Similarly, a believer who does not multiply is called a barren believer. Because you're not being fruitful, you're not multiplying. You know from your own heart. Are you barren or are you fruitful? This poster should not just be a poster on the wall of this church. Each time you gather here, your eyes are seeing these words. Those words must become alive in you. If they don't become alive in you, then you will become like the Sardis church in Sardis. Alive, but did. This should not just be a poster. It should become alive. And I'm sure it would not, because of the many pruning work that is being done in this church over the last 17 years. And when I walked in earlier and the worship was already going on, I suddenly saw a cloud of glory in this church. You know, sometimes the presence of God comes when the presence of God comes for a visitation, because we all are united to praise and worship God. But this cloud that I saw is not just a cloud that came, but it is the angels, special group of angels who are in charge of the work of pruning. I saw 3 of them standing in this corner, and they were huge, and they were full of gold, like full of glory all over them. So when I looked at them, this word came to me: these are the angels of pruning that have been pruning this church, preparing it every year towards her final destiny. So for this much of glory to fill this church means you are very, very near to the end for a powerful outpouring. Sometimes things get delayed because, not because God is delaying, it's because the people are not ready. When the people are not ready, how to give them what is intended for them? Because they're not ready. And instead of the work of God that will grow from glory to glory, it will die prematurely. Like I told you about Sadusundar's story. You know, whatever is happening this year through the COVID, there are two ways to look at it. Or not 2 ways, 2 forces are working. In the middle, I told you earlier, this COVID virus is a judgment of God. So that's in the center. On the left side, the enemy is capitalizing on the situation by bringing in the Antichrist agenda into the world. So, wearing a face mask. So what is the sign? Shut up. You have no more any rights to talk. You listen to what we tell you. It's a sign. You know, some microbiologists that I have seen their report, they say the size of the virus is extremely small and the holes in the mask are very big. So even if you're wearing the mask, the virus can still get into you. So if that's true, which is true, right? Then why wear? So it's not just the wearing, you know, it is the control of a society. So this is another experiment that is being conducted all over the world. How much governments can control society? And what is the tool they use to control society? The law. If you don't wear a face mask, you'll be fined. Or the extreme case, imprisonment. So for fear of all that, what do? Okay, they are good and bad of that. No, we are not going into that argument of all that. That's number 1. Number 2, what is put into you? Fear. Fear. So people are reacting more out of fear than out of faith. Last week, one lady who attends our online class, she's from South Africa. She is one of the elders in her church. She attended a meeting that her church bishop called for, and the bishop said, okay, now that the government has allowed us to gather for service, not large numbers, 50s, 100s, and then they need to be social distance, and then they need to take a temperature check outside the church, and then their hand need to be sanitized, all those safety measures. We have no problem with all that, fine. And then the bishop told the board member, we will not sing. We will not sing in the church. So this lady who attends our class asked the bishop, so why? Because spread of virus. So we will not sing. So what should we do? Just, I love you. This lady asked the bishop a question. The scripture says, God inhabits on the praises of his people. So when God's people praise, the glory of God comes down. Isn't it powerful enough to kill the virus? Yes or no? Yes. Tell me. Yes. Isn't it powerful? Yes. So if you don't sing, which glory fills the church? Virus glory. Right? So to whom are we yielding? Are you yielding to fear or are you yielding to faith? Both starts with the letter F, Faith factor or fear factor? Where do you want to stand? I am for safety measure, okay? I am for safety measure. But the root is don't act out of fear. That should be the foundation. You can have your safety measure. Like in our offices, the government has stipulated this is what we do. So we have those safety measures. We have a sanitizer outside at the entrance of our office, and then the security officer, he has a shotgun in his hand. So even when I come, he says, sir, please come and stand here. So I said, okay. He shoots my head. 36.5. Okay, you are cleared. And before I could go in, they'll say, sir, please show us your hands. And they pump, like pumping gas. They'll pump the sanitizer solution on my hands. So I said, okay, that's fine, But I am not ruled by fear. I'm not ruled by fear. I'm for safety measure. But don't allow fear to rule you. This is the most important factor. You want to stay above. Faith stays above. Fear sinks under. So that is number 2. Number 3. So now they are saying, virus can pass through shaking of hands. So don't shake hands. Do the leg shake. Have you seen that? You've never seen? Oh, you poor Americans. Have you seen the elbow shake? Elbow shake, leg shake. So don't tell me virus won't fly through the elbow. If viruses can be passed through hands, can it get passed through your elbow? See the illogic in all this? So what is really underneath? It's not all this thing, The real thing underneath is one word: control. control. That's the one word. Because when the Antichrist comes, he will control the whole world. So this is a training. This is a big dry run test. A test that's been taken globally to see how the global citizens will react. Don't come out. Don't worship. Nobody allowed. Shut down. Lock down. No one should come out of the house. How much do we obey? So this is all the plan of the enemy. Right? Okay. So the latest thing is now they want to do away with hard currency. Because they say currencies are transmitting viruses. Because I touch the dollar note, you touch the dollar note, and he touches the dollar note, you see it spreads. So therefore, do away with paper currency and introduce what? Digital money. See, that is another step towards the mark of the beast. Another step. See, it is moving inch by inch. So this year is a trial. A trial that the Antichrist government or the powers to be are testing the whole world to see. They're just capitalizing on the situation. Okay, now is the right time. Let's implement our laws. 3 weeks shutdown, 2 weeks shutdown, 1 week shutdown. All these are dictated by the World Health Organization. No governments in this world make their own decision. The World Health Organization tells them when to implement the lockdown, the period. And then what? Oh, don't let the religious people gather together. Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep them away. So you see, in these last 6 months, people stayed away from church. Do you know that we have been now psycho-conditioned to a new lifestyle? Yes. We are psycho-conditioned to a new lifestyle of watching church online. So you become so accustomed to watch church online, if tomorrow they lift up everything and say, okay, you can have your services all over again, how many percent will come to church? How many percent? I just read yesterday a study made in the US, and the study says 40% will not go back to church. And I agree with that figure. 40% will, because they've been accustomed to a new lifestyle. So you don't need to rush to church on a Sunday. You don't need to dress up. You don't need to do anything. You can just sit on your couch in your pajamas. Yes. No need to make up your hair. Just sit on your couch and watch online. See, new lifestyle, alternate lifestyle. This is what they call the new normal. This is the plan of the devil. So what is the ultimate plan? Keep the church divided. Keep them divided. See, if you stay together in unity, the glory of God manifests. Ephesians 2:20. When the whole body comes together, then the glory of God is magnified. So keep them all divided. When you keep them divided, what do? When you have a problem, who do you seek to? So you don't pray together. This is the plan of the enemy. Diabolical plan, keep you divided. And eventually, they will introduce a new God. A new digital God. Worship this God. Because this God has finally saved you from all the plagues of the world. Gave you a new lifestyle, alternate lifestyle. See, beware. Open your eyes and look at the dangers that are taking place. Now again, let me repeat. We want to observe safety measure. We want to observe what our government says, because governments are appointed by God. The scripture says that. However, when it contradicts the laws of God, then you stand on God's side. You should not stand on the law's side. You stand on God's side.